Hey cactus friends, it's Jenny from Cookies Cacti. We are at the 12-week update of this cactus seed soil battle. And definitely things have been progressing, and I'm going to show you how the seedlings are doing amongst these 6 different soils that we're comparing for growing cactus from seed. And I also have a second tray of seedlings that I'm experimenting with 6 different, I would say, combinations of soil, coming from what we talked about over the past couple of videos. I started off with some soils and some of them are doing really great, but then there was a question of, well, if we amended that soil with some inorganics, how would it do? What if we used something closer to what the East Coast Camanchaca soil was using, with like lava rock and akadama, something like that. So I do have another tray. So I have a lot of data to share with you. And honestly, this is actually getting really difficult to track. Compiling all the data and counting all the seedlings takes quite a bit of work and time. I actually have Plant Story streaming at the same time because Ketoy is now on Plant Story. Yeah, this is what my life is like now. I'm constantly on Plant Story all the time. Anyway, I'm going to leave that running. I was trying to think about how to structure this video because there's so much to cover. Why don't I do the same as I did last time? Let's start with showing you on tray number 1 how the seedlings look as of now, and then we'll go look at some data, and then I'll tell you about what I have set up for tray number 2 and look at that data as well. So if you remember, in tray number 1 we have 6 different types of soils that we are testing of growing Astrophytum and Ariocarpus from seed. We have Uni-Gro Cactus mix, we've got the Rob Romero mix, we've got the Miracle-Gro Seed Starter with Miracle-Gro Perlite, we've got just the plain Miracle-Gro Cactus mix, then we've got our 2 premium soils that I purchased off of Etsy, which is the East Coast Camanchaca soil, and then we've got the Mike's Rare Plant soil. And these 2 premium soils are significantly more expensive than the ones that you can find at your, typical big box store or maybe at a local nursery. And if you remember, this tray is a 1020 tray and it fits 32 2.5-inch pots. So the edges, this column over here on the edge, this column over here on the other side, they're my dummy pots. The soil experiment are the 6 pots or columns that are in the middle of the tray, just to make things more fair. As always, I struggle with managing the reflection of the grow lights, which are over here, because I do have these domes still covering these seedlings. So they are at, just about 3 months old. I am counting by weeks because it's just easier for me. We know that 1 month is not necessarily 4 weeks. So we're just going to go by 4-week increments for updates. So let's go ahead and take a look at how the seedlings are doing. And I guess we'll just go from left to right like we did on the last episode. And there are some issues showing up. And when I show you the numbers of how we look at 12 weeks versus 8 weeks, you're going to see some of the numbers going down because some seedlings are dying because of mold. So let's start with this Uni-Gro Cactus mix, which if you remember is just straight out of the bag. I did not amend it with anything. So we have 25 seeds per pot. We've got 3 pots of Astrophytum per soil type and 1 pot of Ariocarpus. So let's start with the Astrophytum. Actually, I'm just going to mix everything together because this is so hard to organize. So if you can see at the top right of the pot, you see that fluffy white stuff? Here, let me put it right in the center of the screen. That's the mold that's showing up primarily in the Uni-Gro pots. And I'm trying to decide, maybe leave some comments of what you think. Should I try treating it or should I just leave everything as they are and see how they do over time so that we have basically no intervention with the soils as they are? And you all know I don't do any kind of sterilization. I'm just not willing to microwave soil, but that's just me. But you can see these Astrophytum are developing quite well in Uni-Gro. There's actually one seedling at the bottom left that looks like it's 2-headed. Let me try zooming in. You see that one? Right in the center of the screen, right there. 2-headed guy. So you see, they're actually developing quite well in Uni-Gro. Let's see, let's look at the last pot. You can see mold there. Almost for certain there are dead seedlings under there. So I am struggling a bit with the fungus, and we'll take a look at how it's doing in the rest of the soils. Let's look at the Ariocarpus now as well. Still, you can see how much smaller the Ariocarpus are compared to the Astrophytum. They're just slow growing. And they're doing alright. You can see some tubercles going on. Again, I apologize if you hear a bunch of sounds because I'm trying my best to get my camera to aim, and so I have it touching the top of the dome to help me hold the camera steady. And so you might hear some squeaking. That's the best I can do. Okay, next, Rob Romero's mix, which again, remember from our last update, I found out that the native soil component is not supposed to be clay soil. So, you know, this Rob Romero's mix did great with germination, but you're going to see a pretty big difference in how the seedlings are developing over time. You're going to see, I'm going to try once I can get my, oh gosh, so hard. But you see I have Uni-Gro and Rob Romero's mix right next to each other, and it's pretty clear that the Uni-Gro seedlings are developing faster than the Rob Romero mix, but we're talking about cactus mix versus my native soil, which is clay. Which brings me to tray number 2 is going to test Rob Romero's mix with actual cactus soil rather than my native soil. So you can see the seedlings are doing okay. There's also mold showing up in this pot as well. And I actually feel like there's a correlation between the pots that have mold showing up and how close they are to the edge of this dome. Because you can see there's condensation inside the dome, so it makes it extra moist for these pots that are on the edge. And I feel like the ones on the edge may be having more mold problems than the ones in the center of the tray, like those ones. Okay, let's continue. More Astrophytum in the Rob Romero mix. And then now if we look at Uni-Gro right next door, you can see how different the seedling size and progression are. Let's look at the last pot of Astrophytum in the Rob Romero mix. See again, definitely underdeveloped compared to the Uni-Gro, but actually it's not bad. Not bad, this one. Okay, let's look at the Ariocarpus. They're in there. Oh, counting these is so hard because it's so hard to see the seedlings the way that their color is, but I'm going to be doing fine. And then we'll look at numbers later. Okay, next is the Miracle-Gro Seed Starter with Miracle-Gro Perlite. Let's see, am I aiming at the right place? 1, 2, 3, here we go, right here. Not bad. Not too bad on the development. And also, if you recall, these are Astrophytum hybrids. They're a complete mix. I have no idea who the mother plants are, but they are seeds from my own plant. But because they're hybrids, then the seedlings are total surprises as they come up. And you can see how different many of the seedlings look from each other. It's really fun as they get older. Here's the next pot of Astrophytum. Doesn't look as impressive, this one. And let's look at the last pot, which is this one right here. It's okay. It's kind of a mix. Some of the seedlings are really, really tiny. Like, they're so hard for me to even find when I'm counting. I can't say that my counting is perfect. It's got to be off by probably like a seedling or so sometimes, but yeah, seedlings are kind of, this one's not that great on development, and my eyes are kind of comparing it against the other pots. But yeah, so that's what it looks like with the Miracle-Gro Seed Starter and Perlite. Okay, next is our worst performing soil, which is the Miracle-Gro Cactus soil, Cactus Citrus Palm soil. Let's start over here, and you're going to see it's really hard to find the seedlings. They're in there, but they're really, really small and underdeveloped compared to the other soils. So that's one pot. Here's the next one, which, I mean, with my eyes, I can find some very underdeveloped seedlings, but it's bad, right? I mean, it's just so obvious. Oh, I forgot the Ariocarpus on the Miracle-Gro Seed Starter and Miracle-Gro Perlite. They're in there. They're doing okay. They look a little bit stressed, but they are right under the center, or in the center of the tray. Perhaps they're getting more light than everybody else. So they're a little stressed. Okay, back to the Miracle-Gro Cactus Citrus Palm Mix. Let's look at the last pot of Astrophytum. Same thing, is that this one's actually doesn't look as bad as the other two. You can see some seedlings there, but you know, it's not impressive. But there's still some. There's some strong seedlings. Okay, and then the Ariocarpus. I think there's still 2 seedlings in here. I can barely see the tubercles. Let me see if I can even find it for the camera to see. Oh, I can see it with my eyes. I don't know if you can see it on the camera at all, but there's still 2 seedlings in there, growing very slow. Okay, now let's look at our first premium soil, which is our winner chicken dinner, the East Coast Common Chaka seed soil, and you can see the seedlings just look great. That's all I can say. Let me try to get closer here. Let's see if I can. Oh gosh, why is it so out of focus? I think it is, at least. See, doing great. No losses, I think, on his seedlings. Everything that germinated is still here. It looks great. Look at the second pot of Astrophytum. Looking really good. Look at that. Let's look at the last one, which is over here. Looking good. Looking really, really good. Look how cool those Astrophytum are. Really starting to show their characteristics. So it's too bad I don't have the pots of the East Coast Common Chaka and the Uni-Gro next to each other, so we can see how they compare with each other with regards to seedling development. Oh, it's going to be so hard to see because the Uni-Gro is all the way over there. I would say with my eyes, when I look at it, definitely East Coast Common Chaka is more developed. But the Uni-Gro is not bad. However, Uni-Gro is having the mold problem, which I don't see with the East Coast Common Chaka. Although I do see some orange stuff showing up in here, but there's none of that white fuzzy mold in here. So no die-off. And that's a huge positive. And then let's look at the Ariocarpus. Looking good. Little tiny tubercles, super cute. See if I can get even closer. Yeah, look how cute they are. Doing well. Last but not least, we've got our second premium soil, which is from Mike's Rare Plants, his Lofo Pro Seed Starter. You can see the Astrophytum looking good. But when we look at it side by side with East Coast Common Chaka, sorry, this is so hard to do. You can kind of see their development pace with respect to each other. Let's look at another pot. This is Mike's Rare Plant, Lofo Pro. And look side by side with East Coast Common Chaka. And then let's look at the last pot of Astrophytum here. Looking good. And next to East Coast Common Chaka. Yeah, not bad there. And then we've got our dummy pots here, which you can see there's some orange stuff showing up. Oh, sorry. Orange stuff showing up in these pots on the edge. They really get the most moisture because of all the condensation on the edges of or on the inside of the dome. Let's look at the other dummy pots on this side. Got some like random Ariocarpus. There's a Stellocactus Hexadrophorus. The surviving seedlings, and I think some more Ariocarpus. But you know, these corner pots get the most moisture. because they're so close to this condensation on the inside of the dome on two sides of the pot. Okay, so that's the condition of the seedlings. Let's actually go look at some numbers with regards to tray number 1, and then we'll talk about tray number 2. Okay, I'm at my computer just like we did in episode 2. I'm going to put up screenshots of the tables and the charts so that it's easier for everybody to see, but I need this as a prompt so I know what in the world I'm talking about. Alright, so first let's take a look at the Astrophytum, and you remember there are 25 seeds per pot and there are 3 pots, so 75 total seeds. And I've added a row at the very bottom for this 12-week update, and we can take a look at the numbers, and you can see East Coast Common Chaka staying steady. We lost a seedling for Mike's Rare Plant. We lost 3 seedlings from Uni-Gro. I think it was due to that white fuzzy mold. We lost 3 seedlings for Rob Romero's mix. Same thing. The Miracle-Gro Seed Starter, we lost 1. And then the Miracle-Gro Cactus mix, we're actually staying steady at 29. So we're pretty much at we've already, passed that germination stage of these seeds. And now we're just watching how many survive, and then how do they develop over time. I can show you a picture of a graphical chart of this data right here. So you can see I've got the color coding for the different soils. East Coast Common Chaka staying steady, and then you can see some of these, like Romero's mix is going down, Uni-Gro's going down. Mike's Rare Plant I think just went down by 1. Miracle-Gro Seed Starter down, Miracle-Gro Cactus mix staying steady. So we're going to watch to see if these graphs continue to decline over time, where the fittest survive. And then let me know what you think. Should I intervene and try some fungus treatment, or should I just let them go and see what happens without any kind of intervention at all? Okay, next let's look at the Ariocarpus. So we've got our table again, and I've added the last row for our 12-week update, and you can see East Coast Common Chaka staying steady at 20, Mike's Rare Plants also staying steady at 15. We've lost 1 seedling, or perhaps I just can't find it anymore, for Uni-Gro, so now we're at 22 seedlings. Romero's mix is staying constant. Miracle-Gro Seed Starter, I couldn't find the last seedling, so we're down to 14. And then the Miracle-Gro Cactus Citrus Palm mix is staying steady at 2. And let's look at the graphical chart. So you can see, I always like this because you can see it so clearly of how things are moving. Again, the same color coding for the different soils, and you can just see how things are moving at 12 weeks. Yeah, so this is where we're at 12 weeks for tray number 1. Next, let me show you the tray number 2 experiment that I started, which is also 6 different soils, just using the layout of the 1020 tray. Same 2.5-inch pot. I didn't do a cost analysis on this one. It's just way too much work. And I think that they're probably, the adult soil is cheap, but then the stuff with like bonsai mixes and stuff, it's going to be more expensive. But, I'll leave it up to you to figure out the cost and everything. This will just be more of a experiment and observation on performance. So I have 6 different soils using materials that I already have. And last time I talked about those bags of like bonsai mixes that I purchased from my local nursery, Summer Winds. So let me go show you that one more time, and then we'll come back and look at these 6 soils. Okay, so the lighting's going to be terrible as usual. So I've got this Tiny Roots Premium Blend bonsai soil. It has akadama, lava rock, and pumice in it. Trying to think about the East Coast Common Chaka mix and trying to do something that's a little bit closer to that. This is what that bonsai mix looks like, dry, if you look at it. Oh my gosh, I just dropped it on the floor. It's got lava rock, it's got akadama, it's got pumice in it. So I was using this and mixing it with the other cactus soil. So I'll show you what mixes I was using. Oh my gosh. Oh, look what I did! The next bag is this Japanese pumice, which on the description says that Japanese pumice is a tan color. Let me put some in my hand and show you under the light. So this is what that Japanese pumice looks like. It's a tan color. I also have a bag of Akadama, but I didn't use it for this experiment, so I'll just show you these two. Okay, so I have pictures of what these soils look like after I mixed it when they were dry. And I'm going to put a screenshot up so it's really easy for you to say, and I'm just going to talk to the screen. The first mix that I wanted to try is Rob Romero's mix, but instead of using my native soil, I use Uni-Gro. So it's 3 parts pumice, which is just the Uni-Gro pumice, 1 part mushroom compost, and 1 part Uni-Gro cactus mix. So that's one thing I really wanted to try. The second one is the same mix, but using Miracle-Gro Cactus Citrus Palm mix instead. So 3 parts pumice with 1 part mushroom compost and 1 part Miracle-Gro Cactus mix. So we're giving Miracle-Gro Cactus mix another chance to see how it does. The one on the very right at the top is my adult soil, which is 3 parts pumice and 1 part, at this point, Uni-Gro Cactus mix. I want to see how my adult soil does with growing Astrophytum and Ariocarpus from seed. Okay, now on the bottom row, on the left we've got bonsai mix with Uni-Gro. So the bonsai mix, I did 2 parts of that tiny roots bonsai mix, which has the lava rock, pumice, and Akadama in it. Then I did 1 part of the Japanese pumice and then 1 part Uni-Gro cactus mix. The 5th soil that I tried is the same bonsai mix but using Miracle-Gro instead for the organic portion of the mix. So I did 2 parts bonsai mix, the tiny roots mix, 1 part Japanese pumice, and 1 part Miracle-Gro cactus mix. And the last experiment that I tried is the bonsai mix with worm castings. So I was actually, if you look at these pictures, hopefully you can see them okay, but I was actually trying to get this last one to look a bit more like the consistency from the East Coast Camanchaca soil, because I feel like these other 5 all are more inorganic than his mix. So this last one, I tried to make it a little bit more organic. So I did 1 part of the tiny roots bonsai mix, 1 part Japanese pumice, and I put like a dash of decomposed granite. I don't even know why, I just did that. And I did 1 part worm castings. So you can see that the worm castings portion is actually a higher percentage of organic mix compared to the others. Plus, worm castings, you know, the others I'm using Miracle-Gro and Uni-Gro cactus mixes, so they have some inorganics in there already. But worm castings, just pure worm castings. I don't remember what brand it was of worm castings that I used. It's just the one that's in that yellow, primarily yellow bag with some brown colors on it, and you can just find it at Home Depot. I think that's where I bought it from, that worm castings. So these are the 6 soils that I'm trying in tray number 2. Let me show you the layout of tray number 2, because not only did I try these new set of soil mixes, I also tried using different top dressing, because that's another question mark that we have. But you know, this experiment is far from comprehensive. It's just going to be a very, very rough idea. Let me show you the layout of tray number 2. Here's the layout of my tray number 2, another 1020 tray with 32 pots in it. Each of these columns is a different soil mix, and the very left and the very right columns are dummy pots, so only the center 6 columns are part of the experiment, just like tray number 1. So you can see along the top the different soil mixes that are in here, and I tried to kind of spread things out so I didn't put the 2 Romero mixes together and then the 2 bonsai mixes together. I kind of interleaved them with each other to kind of spread them out throughout the tray. So you can see on the left is the bonsai mix with Miracle-Gro, then we've got the Romero mix with Miracle-Gro, then we've got the bonsai mix again but with Uni-Gro, then Romero's mix with Uni-Gro, then we've got the bonsai mix with the worm castings, and then finally my adult soil. And then on the left-hand side, you're going to see that each of these rows perhaps has different top dressing. So for the Astrophytum, I can try some different top dressings. With the Ariocarpus, I just left it with the Uni-Gro pumice for the top dressing. So I'm trying the bonsai mix as the top dressing, which I think is a little bit closer to what East Coast Camanchaca's top dressing is like. Then we've got the Japanese pumice, and then we've got the Uni-Gro pumice. So for the Astrophytum, we can somewhat compare. But as we saw, all those pots on the edges of the tray get a lot more moisture than the ones in the center, so it's not quite fair either, but it might give us some idea. So this is the layout of tray number 2. I'm going to go over to the tray now. We're going to look at the seedlings, and then we'll come back and look at the numbers. This mess that I made, oh my gosh. Okay, let's take a look at this tray. I am now crouching down. I'm on the, so the tray number 1 is actually up on the higher tray, and then tray number 2 is down here, but the same setup. The entire tray gets its own light. And so we've got on the left hand side the dummy pot on the left, which I just sowed like Ariocarpus and other random seeds, maybe even some other Astrophytum hybrids. And then, so then on the very right, same thing, this last column or edge of 4 pots are all dummy pots. Same thing, I think I put a bunch of Astrophytum and stuff in there. I was just using like whatever leftover soil mixes I had and just threw it together, so they're not part of the experiment. So now we look at the center pots, and let's see, on the left hand side we've got the bonsai mix plus the Miracle-Gro. I'll call it that way, but you know there's more than just that. It's gonna be really hard to see. I think these are 19 days in right now. Astrophytum. My gosh, counting these is so difficult, especially with top dressing color like that, because the seedlings just blend right in. You can see that there's definitely some aerials popping up. We've got, let's see, Astrophytum, and then we've got Ariocarpus. And we'll look at numbers next. They're so small and they're so hard to see, but they're in there. Next is the Rob Romero mix with the Miracle-Gro Cactus Citrus Palm mix. So look at this. This is very interesting. Look at this. So this is, yeah, Rob Romero's mix. Same mix, but I'm not using my native soil. Look at that. They are coming up. So I think amending Miracle-Gro works just fine. Just don't use Miracle-Gro Cactus Citrus Palm Mix straight out of the bag for doing this. Amend it, and I think it will do fine. Here's another pot. Look at that. I know it's hard to see. They're all camouflaged, but look at that. Doing well. Another one here, which I cannot see on my viewfinder at all. Oh. And then this is Ariocarpus. I'm just going to have to leave it to you to look. I think I cannot see my viewfinder under this light. I think there's a little bit of green there I can't see. But you see the top dressing I'm using is different. So that row at the top is the bonsai mix top dressing. Then we've got the Japanese pumice, and then just our standard Miracle-Gro pumice for top dressing. Cookie! I know you all can't see her because it's so dark, but this is her new thing. She likes to hang out in the car in the garage. Cookie! I heard her meowing and she's just in here by herself meowing away. I have the garage door like propped open so she can come in whenever she wants. Cookie! So you can see that the Miracle-Gro Cactus Citrus Palm Mix does great when amended. So either on the left with the bonsai mix or on the right with Rob Romero's mix. So that's a good sign. And it also means I didn't waste my money on a whole bag of that cactus mix. It's usable. Absolutely usable. Okay, next we've got the bonsai mix but with Uni-Gro. See the seedlings, Astrophytum. Aerials are popping up. Astrophytum. It's a different top dressing, looking good. We've got more Astrophytum. And then we've got the Ariocarpus, which hopefully you can see there's like little green dots in there. Yeah. So they're coming up. Okay, soil number 4 is Rob Romero's mix, but with Uni-Gro. Yes. Okay, so we've got Astrophytum. Like so far it's actually pretty hard to tell the performance of the pots from each other. We'll look at the exact numbers in just a moment. Let's see. More Astrophytum. And then the Ariocarpus. Can you see them? Oh yeah, you can see them. I have a feeling that even the Rob Romero mix, oh yeah, it's going to do great with the cactus soils rather than my native clay soil. Okay, now soil number 5. This one's interesting. This is the bonsai mix with the dash of decomposed granite and the worm castings. So here's the Astrophytum. Same, you know, top dressing difference from the first row. The second row, more Astrophytum. Let's see, another Astrophytum. Oh my gosh, I can't see anything. My arm's getting tired. And Ariocarpus. Don't know if you can see. Oops, don't know if you can see them or not. And the last but not least, 6th soil is my adult soil, which is the 3 parts pumice and 1 part cactus soil, which in this case is Uni-Gro. So there's the Astrophytum, looking good. Means that this entire time I probably could have just used my adult soil for seed sowing. Astrophytum. But I still want to try maybe another experiment with Copiapoa, but I don't think I can add another experiment to this series because it's becoming very, very difficult to track. Oh, I'm pointing at the wrong pot. This is the 3rd pot of Astrophytum, which is really hard to see. I can't see anything. This is the Ariocarpus, adult soil with Ariocarpus. Oh, I do want to mention the Astrophytum seeds I'm using on tray number 2 are identical to the ones from tray number 1, but the Ariocarpus seeds, I didn't have enough to do another experiment with the same seeds, so the seeds used here for Ariocarpus are also seeds from my own plant, but they're different. They're a different mother plant. So that's how they look. Now let's go look at some numbers. The interesting thing I want to show you primarily is how the tray number 2 compares to tray number 1. And I actually have data from 11 days from tray number 1 and 11 days for tray number 2. So we can actually look at them side by side. Let's look on the left first. That's for Astrophytum germination at 11 days. Remember, there are 75 seeds sowed per soil. The 6 bars on the left are from tray number 1. So we can see East Coast Camanchaca, of course, winning. And you can see the other soils and how they perform. And the Miracle-Gro is doing very, very poorly here. But the 6 bars on the right are tray number 2. Look at that. And one thing that I noticed for Astrophytum is that the bonsai mixes with Uni-Gro or Miracle-Gro seem to be doing the best. And the one that's doing the worst is the worm castings one. And I misspelled bonsai here, which really bugs me. I'll go fix that later. And then with regards to the Rob Romero mix, not bad. Uni-Gro seems to be doing better in all cases compared to Miracle-Gro, but they're pretty close, like pretty darn close. And then here's my adult soil, Uni-Gro and pumice. But you can see the overall performance of these 6 mixes outperforms pretty much everything else in the first tray besides East Coast Camanchaca. So you can continue to use Miracle-Gro cactus seed, palm and citrus, just amend it with inorganics. On the right hand side, we've got the Ariocarpus germination at 11 days. And remember, there are 25 seeds per soil. I only did 1 pot of Ariocarpus per soil type. On the left hand side, we have the 6 bars from the tray number 1. East Coast Camanchaca winning, and Romero's mix doing quite well. And the 6 bars on the right are from tray number 2. And you can see that it's not really much better than tray number 1. So that's really interesting as well. they're kind of there, but maybe my adult mix seems to be kind of on par with Rob Romero's mix, but everything else is kind of okay. Like, they're kind of comparable to the other soils from the tray number 1, but East Coast Camanchaca is still outperforming everybody. Like, we didn't get close to East Coast Camanchaca on the Ariocarpus. So that's kind of interesting. So that's at 11 days on each. Now, the next update that I have was for tray number 2 is on 18 days, and I don't have 18-day data from tray number 1. The closest that I have is 16 days. And at germination stage, that 2 days can make a difference. So this is not quite an apples to apples comparison, but it's the best that I can do. So on the left-hand side is at 16 days for tray number 1 and 18 days for tray number 2. And this is Astrophytum. So again, the 6 bars on the left are from tray number 1, and the 6 bars on the right are from tray number 2. And it's kind of the same comments as what we saw at 11 days. So this new set of mixes is doing quite well with Astrophytum, and noticeably well compared to, some of the other soils from tray number 1. On the right hand side, we've got Ariocarpus germination at 16 days for tray number 1 and 18 days for tray number 2. And again, it's 25 seeds per soil. And you can see that the new tray, which would be the tray number 2, are the 6 bars on the right. Still kind of comparable to the other soils besides East Coast Camanchaca from tray number 1. However, you can kind of see, let's see if that's true here. Okay, that's not as obvious. You can kind of see that there are some soils from tray number 2 that are doing better than the other ones. And the ones that really stand out are Rob Romero's mix with Miracle-Gro, Rob Romero's mix with Uni-Gro, and then my adult soil, Uni-Gro and pumice. The ones that are not doing as well for Ariocarpus are the bonsai mixes with the different cactus soils and the worm castings one. So that's a big question mark. Isn't that interesting though? So let's see as time goes on how this changes. But one thing I would mention is that, like, on Astrophytum, like, are any of these new soils anywhere close to East Coast Camanchaca's performance? I would say for Astrophytum, yes. Ariocarpus, no. We haven't quite found that magic mix that can do quite as well as East Coast Camanchaca. So, quite interesting. Let me show you one more set of data on tray number 2 itself. Let's see, because the other factor that we're looking at now for tray number 2 is also on the top dressing, so this starts to become very complicated to track. So I'm going to share these tables with you, and if you're interested, you can just look at them, make conclusions out of it yourself. This table shows the layout of the different pots with soil and with top dressing. So the soil is on the, the top row. So this matches the layout of these pots in the tray itself. On the left-hand side, you can see the different top dressings. So all these light green colors are Astrophytum, the light yellow color is Ariocarpus, and then down at the bottom I have a total of the Astrophytum and Ariocarpus per soil mix. So these are the numbers at the bottom that we were looking at the chart previously, comparing germination compared to tray number 1. But this is broken to this degree of data so that you can see, does the top dressing actually make a difference or not? And I think it kind of maybe does a little bit. So here, for example, we've got that bonsai mix with Miracle-Gro, and so you can see the bonsai mix top dressing, we got 24 to come up, or seeds to come up. With the Japanese pumice, we got 22. With the Uni-Gro pumice, we did 24. So there's not a really big difference in the top dressing here. On Rob Romero's mix, you can kind of see not a huge difference. We've got 24, 23, 25. And then on the bonsai mix with Uni-Gro, 24, 25, 25. With Rob Romero's mix and Uni-Gro, 25, 21, and 22. And then the bonsai mix with the worm castings, we've got 21, 15, and 16. and then my adult soil 20, 24, and 17. So I'll leave this up to you to take a look at it to see if you can see a trend here. It's not super obvious to me at this point at 11 days. Now let's take a look at 18 days. You know, same, looking at the layout of the pots and how many seedlings came up. Along the top we see the different soil mixes, and on the left we can see the different top dressings. So yeah, I'll leave these tables for you so you can just hit pause and just take a look to see if you see a trend or not. It's not super obvious to me. But my only takeaway from looking at these numbers is surprisingly the worm castings mix is not doing as well as the other ones. Well, I hope you found the update of tray number 1 and the new data from tray number 2 to be very interesting. I will be back in another 4 weeks for a 16-week update in which we'll see how these guys are doing and how the tray number 1 is doing. I wish we could see seedling progress, you know, comparing the 2 trays, but they're always going to be out of sync by about, what is it, 2.5 months or something like that. But that's fine. We'll just do the best we can. Anyway, thanks you all for joining me on this one. I know some of you are really interested in this, but this is kind of a more niche topic. Like for us hardcore cactus people and cactus growers, this is extremely fascinating. Anyway, I'll talk to you all later. Take care. Bye-bye.